Benvenuti a tutti. Che c'è nuovi? Fischia il vento in furia la bufera. Scarpero. Just kidding. Well, actually, I love this song. Anyway, so I'm going to show you today, folks, how Cuban ancestry compares to Puerto Rican ancestry, for example, right? So we're going to use my Puerto Rican friend. He's half Puerto Rican, and he said his mother was Italian and Irish, but apparently she was lying. And I kind of had a feeling, but, you know, I can't just say, hey, you can never be a made guy. I'm so sorry. Forget about it. No made guy status for you, you know. So his recent ancestry, this is the, I think, past 8 to 10 generations. His past 8 to 10 generations, he's 18.7% Spanish from his father, 15.3% English from his mother, 12.1% Irish from his mother, 8.9% German from his mother, 7.7% Polish from his mother, 7% Scottish from his mother, and about 30% Native American from his father. So his father is just Spanish Native American. His mother is I don't want to say Anglo-Saxon. No, German's in there. Yes, Anglo-Saxon like me, Anglo-Saxon and Polish. So he's Puerto Rican, Anglo-Saxon, and Polish. Right? That's the recent. On here you can see Puerto Rican. You see recently about 30%. You know, roughly a little bit Puerto Rican from generations back, but recently Puerto Rican. Right? Okay. So that's all we're going to get into for now. Let's go on to me. I'm a Genoese Cuban. I have a Genoese surname, like Genoa, Italy, like Christopher Columbus. I'm only a quarter Hispanic because, again, my grandfather was 100% Italian and my grandmother was Cuban. My mother's Polish and Anglo-Saxon. So here I do have recent Italian ancestry. Italian ancestry, some of it could be in the Slavic and the German as well because it describes that on the description of Italy, right? Balkan. And then also my Cuban grandma had some French in her. So it's not all the same. He doesn't have any French on his Puerto Rican side, and he doesn't have any Italian at all either. Now, all Hispanics carry, or at least most Hispanics carry a percentage of Asian ethnicity. I am recently Japanese. It could be Chinese, but because there are a lot of Chinese in Cuba, but I'm sure multiple Asian groups came in there, so I'm recently Japanese. You know, but no Native American. I'm not recently Native American. It's more than 10 generations back. So again here, my friend Ernest, that's the recent ancestry breakdown. Let's go to advanced. So now advanced, this is up to 50 generations. So 50 generations back, he's roughly 15% British Isles in general, so like English, Irish, Scottish, roughly 15% of that in general. Northern European, that's like, you know, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Russia, 13.5. Just generally Northern European. Generally Northwest European, like Germany, France, and Spain, about well, excluding Spain. Okay, so France and Germany. Northwest European is just French and German, roughly 12.3%. Iberian, that's Spain, 9%. Toscani Italian, 7.5. So he has a little bit of Italian ethnicity, but it's so far back, only appearing on the advanced, which is, you know, 50 generations back. So like that's his grandfather's. Let me see. That's two great, 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 great great wasn't even Italian. Yes, that many greats I counted with my hands. Wasn't even Italian. It has to go so far back. So then American admixed 35%, South Asian 3%, East Asian, like I'm saying, 2.7, African 2.4. See, Peruvian, everybody's a mix. His Puerto Rican is like a good percentage Peruvian when you go further back because they were colonizing Puerto Rico, I suppose, Mexican and Colombian too, right? South Asian, you know, from the right. Okay, so that's you get the idea for him, right? You saw the percentages, right? Here's a picture of my Genoese grandfather and my Cuban grandmother. So right, you can see that he's clearly a European male, and that, you know, I had a Cuban grandma. My friend Ernest, the Puerto Rican friend, believe it or not, genetics are funny. He looks whiter than me. So I mean, yeah, this is me. Um, you know, this is also me. This is what I look like. There's my sister. My sister has blonde hair and blue eyes like my mother or my Genoese grandfather. She could have gotten it from either. Now here's my friend Ernest. Now Ernest looks whiter than me because genetic inheritance is funny, but I mean factually speaking, I'm more European than he is. So you see his green eyes. You can't see it here. Hold on, I'll find it for you. There we go. See, he has green eyes. Looks maybe a little bit Hispanic. I tell him he looks like Irish and Hispanic, which he kind of is. You know. Yeah, I know He has a Mexican roommate. He's not Mexican, I promise you. He's Puerto Rican. All right. So there's a brief rundown of how Cuban ancestry compares to Puerto Rican ancestry. I'll show you how it compares to other Hispanic groups in general from 23andMe's Native American breakdown. Okay, so here's the Caribbean. You can see Cubans are mostly Southern European. They have more Northern European than the other Caribbean countries. Dominican Republic, actually Dominican Republic maybe on average a little bit more. Okay, so I stand corrected. Second highest Northern European, more Southern European, believe it or not. So purely Spain and Italy, Spain, Portugal, and Italy over the other ones too. Puerto Rico has significantly more sub-Saharan African. Um, Places like Jamaica and Grenada are mostly sub-Saharan African. You know, you could look at the percentages yourself. And then for mainland North America, whoops, here we go. We could kind of zoom in here. Uh, Mexico, by far Mexico out of the ones they show here, maybe some of the Central American countries next to Mexico, those are all mostly Native American, the most Native American by far. Argentinians are pretty European, Brazilians are pretty European, but that's how those compare as well. Now, again, like it's the Cuban Missile Crisis, not the Puerto Rican or Mexican Missile Crisis. Here's Havana, Cuba, contraband capitalism and criminal organization in North America. It's a I don't know, journal by JSTOR, which is a credible source. There it is. Okay, you can see here the intoxicating liquors prohibition because all the bootlegging operations by the American Mafia. The American Mafia, mostly Jewish, Irish, and Italian Americans, bootlegging off Cuba. Expansion of local mafia groups of Sicilian provenance, Sicilian. My true ancestry. So again, Genoa's in northern Italy, but on my true ancestry, you can rewind your DNA to any matching ancient samples, and mine does match early Bronze Age Castellucciana, Sicily, which again, this particular region of Sicily, they are Genoese. So like the breakdown for Castellucciana, Sicily is mostly Latin, like Greece, a little bit central and southern Italian. Etruscans, Northern Italians that are kind of component in a lot of other European mixtures. Ligurians. Since the Bronze Age, the Ligurians are considered to have occupied much of northwest Italy, southern France, and parts of Catalonia. Catalonia is in southeast Spain. By Roman times, they were referred to as Celto-Ligurians due to the heavy Celtic influence on their language, culture, and population. Historians of the time described them as having long hair and a shade of auburn, reddish-brown. Instead of a centralized state, their territory was divided among independent tribes. There were Genoese tribes all over Spain and England even, and Greece as well. Many hilltop forts and settlements called oppida were established in the region to protect key trade routes. The Greeks and Etruscans began their own expansion into the region, which the Ligurians resisted. Later, as the Romans began to expand their territory and in competition with Carthage, the Ligurians found themselves split into two factions and ultimately weakened as a result. Liguria found itself into a decades-long conflict with Rome, and tribe by tribe was forced to capitulate as Roman forces only grew in strength. So basically, Rome won the Punic Wars. Rome was the powerhouse of unifying Italy and then other places in Europe into the Roman Empire. Italy only recently became a country. Italy used to be a bunch of independent regions, and it still has the 20 different regions, but I mean, those were separate countries. They were bigger countries. Now that the modern regions are smaller than the old countries, but it was like maybe 6 to 8 different countries where Italy is. There was no Italy. So yeah, I mean, there's a breakdown, of how Cuban ancestry compares to others, and how like I actually legitimately am recently Italian. No, you could say I saw show the picture of no and me. So I wish all of you a fond farewell. Arrivederci. State buon, amici miei. Ciao.